of the ultimate goal of our research is to be able to allow people to express themselves in a way that they want to, and allow people to look a way that they want to. We can actually benefit them by actually facilitating the exchange of value.
メルカリ R4D の山村です。メルカリの研究開発組織である R4D のチャンネルでは、皆さんに役立つ未来のテクノロジーの話をお届けします。現在、東京大学ライズとメルカリ R4D で価値交換工学シンポジウムというオンラインのシンポジウムを実施しております。今回は価値交換工学のリサーチアシスタントの皆さんが価値交換工学で取り組んでいる研究テーマを紹介する動画となります。RA のお一人であるトビー・チョンさんの研究紹介となります。トビーさんは気軽にメイク用品や自分に似合うメイク方法のシミュレーションができるシステムを研究されています。既存のシステムより再現性が高く、そしてリアルな体験ができるバーチャルコスメシステムを作ることを目標とされています。このシステムにより全ての人々がなりたい自分になれ、自分が望む印象を与えられるような、まさにインクルーシブな世界を実現されそうです。現在は照明など様々な条件の下でデータを取り、仕上がりを再現することに注力されています。トビーさんのシステムが実現すれば、自分に合わなかったり、思っていたのと違う化粧品を購入してしまうことがなくなり、またメルカリでコスメなどを購入する前に試してみることも可能になるかもしれません。研究テーマを選んだきっかけや価値交換工学に応募した理由など、詳しくお伺いしましたので、ぜひご覧ください。
Hello, my name is Toby. I'm a first year PhD student. I'm a first year PhD student from the University of Tokyo under the supervision of Professor Takeo Igarashi. So I speak English, Japanese, and Cantonese, and I've been studying in Tokyo for the last 7 years. I mostly work on interactive system like VR interaction or AR interaction. In particular, this year I've been working mostly on cosmetic rendering on top of human faces for various reasons. Right, so to give you some idea of what I want to do for during this year, since April, I have to probably give you some context about why I do what I do. So during my master thesis, master program, what I did was I made a virtual makeup system. So you can think about it as something like Snow or Instagram, Snapchat, that they put on virtual filters on your human face. So they can put on a cosmetic product like for example, Shiseido actually has some cosmetic product that you can actually try on with their Snap camera app. But what we found out, and the reason why we were working on those is because that we found out that transgender people face unique challenges when they want to learn makeup. Things like they can't really learn from traditional media, or they often lack support from their family. And that's why we figured it would be incredibly important for us to support them, for them to help look like what they actually identify as. And that's why we were working on a virtual cosmetic system that can recommend cosmetic design for transgender people. And based on that, what we found out in our previous study is that existing cosmetic system like the one developed by Snap or other manufacturers are often not very accurate. What I mean by that is that yes, you would look better after you apply those filters on your face. That is indeed true, often, because it would hide your flaws and you can have cheek color, so on top of your face. But they are not really associated with their actual product. So for example, let's say you try a foundation color that's on your Snap camera app, and after that you like the color and you bought the product from Shiseido, let's say. What's usually happen among our participants is that they after they apply the actual foundation onto their face, it's not what they was expecting, and it looked different from the one that they saw when they were trying it virtually. And that's why we realized that it would be incredibly important for us to actually develop recreatable, like highly realistic cosmetic, virtual cosmetic function for people to actually understand what product they're buying. And that would be very important because that would open a lot of things that we can do. So for example, we can minimize the time where people buy the incorrect product, the product that don't really suit them. And we can also we can do more interesting things like what we did earlier. It's like we can do analysis of cosmetic product so people can compare different product very quickly. And we can also produce really accurate recommendation for people. So if you want something like this, then perhaps this kind of product is what you would want. And that's not what we can do right now because virtual cosmetic isn't realistic enough at this moment. So that's a little bit of a background of what I did. So this year, what I'm going to try to accomplish is that I want to be able to capture cosmetic product using a multi-camera setup. So existing virtual cosmetic product are often drafted by artists, like digital artists, who have a lot of experience generating these kind of filters, but they are not actually accurately measured. So they're not, say for example, they're often not measured under different lighting condition. And a lot of things are very subtle that you can't really tell from a filter, but you can actually tell when you're seeing a product. So these are the things that we want to be able to measure, and we want to be able to recreate eventually. And that's the goal for our project here for this year. So are you familiar with the concept of transgender people? So that is people who have a gender identity. So they were assigned male or female, but they would actually identify as female or male. So the opposite or at least a different gender than they're assigned as. Many of them actually use makeup as a way to help them look more like the gender they identify as. And that's why we look into, okay, so there are people who use makeup a lot for very critical reason, but there is not a lot of work that actually try to help them to do better in their job, to do better in terms of what they want to achieve. And in particular, there are a lot of makeup tutorial, for example, online on YouTube or on other platforms. But usually those are only for people who are cisgender. So there are people who are born female and also identify as female. So they often have a different facial structure compared to transgender people. And that's why it's very difficult for many transgender people to use those tutorials to help them do to help them to learn makeup, essentially. And that's why we were working. That's when we decided, okay, it's a good idea to work on makeup and see what we can do for them. Right. I think ideally in the future, I would want to say that if we keep on developing what we do, and then I think the best scenario, the best outcome of our research would be there would be a world where people can become who they want to be, regardless of who they are. So that's a very far future. That, like, for example, if you identify as a male, you can look like a male, you can look like not a male, or you can look like a female. It could be anything that you want. But that's more than just makeup right now. So right now, makeup is a very integral part of it. So when you meet people first, you look at their face. At least when back we are not over Zoom, you look into people's face, and then everyone, admittedly or not, start to have a first impression of other people, right? And ideally, we want to actually allow people to adjust their appearance regardless, and adjust how they leave an impression on other people's mind in a way that they want to. So and in that case, you would no longer be bound by your assigned gender or different appearance. You'll be able to change and adjust the way that you look and the way you behave or you sound, and that is the ultimate goal of the research, I would say. So alright, so one of the things that we sort of knew before we actually did our last work, and we also confirmed in our last study, is that cosmetic actually affects more than just the way how you look, right? It's not just how you look. It's also how you perceive by other people and how you feel about, how you think about yourself. So, for example, in one of the interview that we did with one of our participants, who was a transgender man, so he was born as a female but identified as a male, and he was going for job hunting when we were interviewing him. One of the things that he told me is that he would actually very much like to apply cosmetic to their own face, because they feel because the medication that he received when going through the hormone replacement therapy, which is the medical treatment that you receive when you try to transition from male to female, I mean to the other opposite sex, basically, is that one of the side effects of the therapy is that you would have a lot of skin problems. So, for example, your skin will become rougher, and that's not something that he would like to show his potential employers when he goes to interview. But when he was going to Hello Work and try to talk to the officer in Hello Work, he was basically advised not to wear makeup when he goes to interview, because the employer would think that a man who wears makeup and have a really pretty skin is just abnormal, and that's why the officer feels like it would be not ideal if he wears makeup to the interview. So at the end, our participant couldn't wear makeup to the interview, and he also feels really bad about it because he couldn't really cover up what he thinks, at least, is a flaw part of himself, and he can't really present what he thinks is the best image of him to a potential employer. And there are all sort of stories that we heard from our participant that shows that makeup actually affects more than just the way you look, but it's also affect your self-confidence, how other people perceive you. So, for example, we had a participant talk about how not wearing makeup in a new workplace has made her life a lot worse as a transgender woman, and experience discrimination, etc. So these are all episodic evidence that we gather from our participants that shows that it is really important for us to enable people who traditionally face challenge to express themselves in a way that they want. And I think the research that I'm trying to work on would be a nice first step to a society like that. One of the ultimate goal of our research is to be able to allow people to express themselves in a way that they want to, and allow people to look a way that they want to. Yeah, and basically to have confidence of themselves, and just to support them regardless of what their initial condition is, regardless of what their goal is. And I think Medicali would be value exchange engineering, and in specific, Medicali would be a very good partner for me to actually attain the goal that we set out to achieve. The reason for that is because one of the things that as a side effect what our research can also do is that first, it would be incredibly important for people to actually test different cosmetic online. So with COVID and even before COVID, people, and specifically, I mean, cosmetic industry has been shifting towards more an e-commerce form of a market. So many people are actually start purchasing product that they have not tried before directly from an online retailer like Amazon. So, and that itself is a great thing because more people would have access to this product because we also found out that going to a store could actually be a very difficult thing for many people. For example, if you're transgender, then you might not feel comfortable going to buy cosmetic in a storefront talking to people. So that's why I think e-commerce in general is a great trend. But one of the problems that people face when they purchase cosmetic from online retailer is that they don't really know what they're buying, or what they expect that they're buying is not what they actually receive. So many of the times, the product that they purchase isn't something that they want, and that's why I heard that most of the cosmetic product that's sold on Mercari are products that are barely open or barely used. So people just bought something and they realize that that's not what they want. And then they try to make the best use of it by giving it to other people. But I think Mercari would be an ideal partner because in this case, for example, if we were able to create a really realistic virtual cosmetic of for example, for a single product, for example, we would be able to allow people to first to understand what they are buying before they actually do the purchase, and then we can also encourage people to share we can also encourage people to share the way that they use the product. So one of the things that we learned about in our previous study is that cosmetic is difficult. It probably isn't come as a surprise to anyone. Applying cosmetic product is very difficult. And one of the things that we want to do is that, let's say, if we have a very realistic virtual cosmetic setup, we will be able to allow people to share not only the cosmetic, how does the cosmetic product look by itself. It can also share how do you apply the cosmetic product, how it will look when it's stacked with other products. And I think that would actually greatly benefit. It would greatly benefit to both the people who actually want to sell the product and the people who want to purchase the product, right? Because in this case, we are adding a lot of value to the product. So people not only selling the product, they would also be able to transfer the knowledge that they learned about the product. And I think that would just be a great. It would just be a great add-on to what already exists out there, and that's why I applied for value exchange engineering. In the future, I think what probably would be the most practical first step right now for us to do is that right now we have been working on a capturing system in my place because we don't have access to the lab right now just yet. But in the future, I think that after we set up the capturing system and then after we capture a selection of cosmetic product, we can start already testing it with other people and see how people perceive this technology, how much can it actually encourage people to better educate themselves. I mean, how much can people better educate themselves with a product before they make a purchase, and how much they can actually help other people at the same time to get more familiar with a product. And that is what I think would happen in the coming year. So I was thinking, value exchange is something that we have been doing for as long as we have human history, right? People at the beginnings use bartering, and then we have money, but at the end of the day, people by doing exchanging different things, we actually generate value from the action of exchanging, even though perceivably nothing's really changed. I mean, just because I buy something from you, nothing actually has added value to the thing that you give me or the things that I gave you. But to us, we have increased perceived value because we value something more than the thing that we gave away. And to me, I think that this is particularly interesting because we are actually helping a lot of people we are actually be able to help people without needing to. I mean, we'll be able to actually help a broad range of a very large audience without actually providing anything concrete to them, because that's not something realistic we can do. But through research, we can actually benefit them by actually facilitating the exchange of value. And that's why I think it's really interesting perspective and an area of research.
今回は価値交換工学 RA のトビーさんの動画をご覧いただきました。この動画が面白い、ワクワクしたと感じた方は、チャンネル登録と高評価ボタンをお願いします。価値交換工学シンポジウムのコーナーはまだまだ続きますので、これからの動画も楽しみにお待ちください。また、現在実施中の価値交換工学のオンラインコミュニティの詳細なども概要欄に記載しておりますので、ぜひご覧ください。それではまた次の動画で。